I remember house when house was more than just a name to pack on this groove, this emotion. I remember house when it was just one house. I remember house when house had artists, songwriters, and personalities. I remember house when you didn't have to be a DJ just to be into house. I remember house when house was broke. I remember house when house was done in the house. I remember house when it was a spiritual thing. It was a spiritual thing.
Do you remember house? 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 Do you remember house?
I remember house before it was techno. I remember house before it had an afro. I remember house before it was deep. I remember house before it was hard. I remember house when house had tempos. I remember house before MPC 60s. I remember house before house had loops. I remember house before the whole world. I remember
Do
house.
you remember house? Do you remember house? Do you remember house? Do you remember house?
I never knew what
Do you
love
remember
was
house?
until you hunted me down.
Do you remember house?
Captured while I
Do you
hunger.
remember house?
I was tamed for the dawn.
Do you remember house?
Re-energizing spirit.
I remember house before it was called house. I remember house when house respected house.
Basic on your instincts.
I remember house when house grew from the roots of house. I remember house when house was soul music and R&B before house was disco. Before house was disco. I remember house before the super clubs. I remember house when people knew the lyrics of house. I remember house before record labels sold the house. I remember house when house was about love. House was about love. House was about love. House was about love. I remember house.
Do you remember house? Do you remember house?
Not the past tonight.
Do you remember
No.
house? Do you remember 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 house?
Oh, so you's the man who come to sweep my yard. The yard man. I like that broomstick you're carrying. Yes, baby. I like it. Work! Oh. So you's the man who come to sweep my yard. The yard man. I like that broomstick you're carrying. Yes, baby. I like it. I want you to take your broom.